Back in September of 1966, the world was introduced to Star Trek, and it ran for a few years, but then was canceled in 1969. Imaginations had been sparked, the fans wanted more Star Trek, but it would take quite a while before they would get more Star Trek. There were rumors for a while. They were going to rebuild the ship. There was going to be a next generation of Star Trek, which they were going to call Star Trek Phase 2. That kind of fell through. Or, to make a different side of the story, Star Wars got so popular that Paramount really wanted to compete theatrically with Star Wars. So they took some of what they had developed for Star Trek Phase 2 and turned it into Star Trek the Motion Picture. Not the most original name. I mean, they're essentially just calling it Star Trek the Movie. Why not call it like Star Trek the Next Chapter or Star Trek We're Back? In any case, they called it Star Trek the Motion Picture, and the fans were going crazy. This was going to be the greatest film ever made. To those of you who know me, welcome back. To those of you who don't know me, welcome to the channel. This is Nerdy Discussions with Old Man Nerdy, and in today's discussions we are going to be talking about Star Trek, the motion picture. So let's get into it. Now, there's going to be spoilers for Star Trek the Motion Picture since we are going to be taking a deep look into this movie. If you have not seen the movie and you do not want it to be spoiled, please watch the movie first. If you have seen the movie or you simply do not care, well, you do not have to watch the movie first. You don't have to watch the movie first if you do care, but there are going to be spoilers to the movie. You have been warned. The plot of Star Trek the Motion Picture is actually pretty straightforward and borrows a lot from an episode from the original series. There is a threat coming in on a direct heading towards Earth. It is initially it's seen as a giant cloud measuring at 82 AUs, 82 astronomical units, which would mean that this cloud is roughly the size of the entirety of Pluto's orbit, which is just incredibly large. The fact that they didn't see this sooner, or I don't know, I mean, I guess they do see it when it is out in Klingon space, and so the Federation does recognize that there's a huge threat coming in to Earth. Now, the fact that they see it in Klingon space, and the Klingons do what the Klingons always do, they encounter something new, they shoot at it. It does not go well for the Klingons. This is all recorded from like Listening Post Epsilon 9, I think it was called. How they get interior views of the Klingon ship. How they are able to record everything. This has kind of been a problem with Star Trek for a long time. How the reviewers work is never exactly explained. If it was a direct communication, getting a view screen of the bridge would make sense. Anyways, huge threat. One of the biggest threats to the Federation beforehand. The Klingons are no match for it, which means, geez, the Federation is in trouble. So, they will send the only ship in intercept range, which is, of course, the Enterprise. Does this make sense? Not really. If the Enterprise is the only ship between Earth and Klingon space, the Federation has made a huge mistake. Of course, this means that the Klingons have also made a huge mistake, because if there was only one ship defending the capital of the Federation and they didn't try to, take advantage of that, huge missed opportunity on their part. In any case, huge threat coming into Earth, only Enterprise can save the day. Now, this is not our old original series Enterprise, no. This is the refit Enterprise, and the refit is glorious. It is being overseen by the Enterprise's new captain, Captain Decker. He has worked hard in his career to earn this commission, and he is overseeing the final refit of the Enterprise. until Kirk decides to take over the ship because he's the only one that can actually solve the problem, according to him. We will get into this later. But Kirk takes over, demotes Decker, says, "All right, Enterprise, it's time to go." Decker says, "The Enterprise isn't ready. We haven't run all our tests." Scotty tells him, "The Enterprise isn't ready. We haven't run all our tests." Kirk says, "Let's go anyways." Not a great decision. Not the kind of decision making you want in a leader. Things go awry very quickly. Fortunately, Spock, who was not a part of the Enterprise crew, he had gone off to do his Vulcan ritual to embrace pure logic. He joins the Enterprise, helps them fix some of their engineering issues. Why Scotty couldn't fix them since he's supposed to be a really good engineer, don't worry about it. They go off, encounter this cloud, and oh, well, geez, what do they do now? Spock finds a way to communicate with this cloud. He's pretty sure that there is a ship at the center of this cloud. Okay, they establish communication, say we come in friendship, and fly into the cloud. Decker says he thinks this is a bad idea. Kirk says we're doing it anyways. Immediately, the cloud sends a probe once they're inside, which kills an officer named Lieutenant Ilea. Is this Kirk's fault? Yeah, maybe, maybe not. They go in deeper. They find the ship inside the cloud. It is enormous. Not as enormous as the cloud itself, but I mean, still, it makes the Enterprise look very small. And it turns out at the center of this ship is, well, a probe. Now, this probe does send kind of a replacement Lieutenant Alia on the ship to monitor what's going on in the Enterprise. She's not herself, although she does have the appearance and all the memories of Ilea. It is clear that it also has the intelligence of this being that's known as V'ger, who is the intelligence behind this giant ship. And V'ger, it turns out, is just a probe that was sent from Earth a couple hundred years ago. The last of the Voyager series, in fact. It gets the name V'ger because apparently it can read the side of the side of itself, but can't recognize that there's scorching and letters missing. It's okay. That's not important. The important thing is V'ger has gone off in the universe, amassed incredible knowledge, amassed an incredible amount of power, thus the giant ship and the giant cloud, and is doing what it was supposed to do to return that information to Earth. However, V'ger has become self-aware and it's kind of confused about its purpose in life. So it's returning to Earth to meet its creator, not realizing that one, its creator will be long gone, and two, that its creator is in fact, well, humans. So, they figure out what V'ger wants, which is to have contact with humans. Although V'ger itself doesn't know that. It has knowledge but not wisdom, and Decker sacrifices himself to save, well, all of humanity. That's the plot. That's it. So, things the movie does right. The special effects are a pretty big leap forward from the original TV show. The redesigns of both the Enterprise and like the Klingon battle cruisers is incredible. The soundtrack by Jerry Goldsmith is wonderful. They even reused some of it when they did Star Trek The Next Generation some years later. It also gives us the Klingon theme song, which I think is one of the coolest Star Trek songs that they've ever done. The movie starts strong with not only the upgraded special effects and the music, but it starts with 3 Klingon battle cruisers. It looks like something, something's about to go down. This is a good way to start the movie. You're starting off with something we know is an aggressive thing right from the get-go. Not only do they redesign the Klingon ships, though, they also redesigned the old Klingons themselves. The 1960s versions of the Klingons were, well, the makeup effects just weren't that good, let's be honest. This is the first time that we see the Klingon, makeup that's going to go on for quite a while. I mean, it got changed later and then changed again later, but this was for about, almost 30 years the standard for what Klingons looked like. And in my head canon, it's what the Klingons should look like. The fact that their bridge does not look like a comfort really went into the design. It looks like a warrior race designed it, and it the feel that you get from these ships is, yes, menace. Are they fighting this cloud? Okay, sure. What is this cloud? We don't know. But the Klingons look badass and they are fighting something. Something unknown. The new torpedo effects, the sounds, and the design look and sound incredible. If I had been in the theater back in the day, this would have blown my mind. Their torpedoes don't really have an effect on the cloud. What effect torpedoes should have on a cloud, I don't really know. But, their Klingons are being Klingons. There's a potential threat. They are fighting it. This is Star Trek to its core. Then we cut to the Epsilon 9 station. It's pretty good effects for the time. They have a little guy out there to give you scale of this station. I think Epsilon 9 is kind of like a listening post. They're monitoring situation, relaying orders from Starfleet. Uh, doesn't really seem to be armed or defended in any way. Not really sure why. That seems kind of an oversight. But I mean, the effects are pretty good. A lot of the effects that you have, like the open windows to space, are also pretty good. They are. The costuming for these people is so-so. But they're monitoring the situation with the Klingons. They know something big is going down. The audience knows something big is going down. The fact that these people don't have the greatest uniforms and they're not on a ship, well, okay, we can deal with that. We can deal with that. How they get the internal view from the Klingons and the external views from what they're going on, I don't know how the visuals work. Never really made sense. But Klingon battlecruiser gets hit, and it gets just disintegrated in one shot. If we thought the Klingons were a threat, whatever this cloud is just so much more. So the tension of this movie is being set perfectly. The arch enemy of the Federation is no match for whatever this cloud is. And if they're no match, then what is the Federation going to do? This scene sets the expectations for the entire movie, and it is probably my favorite scene from this movie to this day. I mean, I'll watch, just this clip. We finally see the Klingons fighting in battle, well, kind of, and it just, their presence here is insignificant. Whatever this cloud is, it is so much more powerful, and that was just a great way to start a movie. It's just, I wish the rest of the movie had lived up to this one scene. Let's get into some of the less wonderful aspects of this movie, which unfortunately there are a few. One of the main problems people have with this movie is that it is slow. It is slow paced, and there are so many scenes where it's just characters looking at something, like the Enterprise. And the scenes where people aren't just looking at something are long shots of the Enterprise. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the new Enterprise design. But as good as the effects are on this movie, and for the time they were incredible, as wonderful as the new Enterprise design is, the effects of the new Enterprise, all these long shots of it, are not a plot. It's not exciting. Even a lot of the actors involved in making this movie found the movie to be boring. That is not the sort of thing you want in your movie. The other main problem is that this was, well, among the other problems, is that this is just a remake of an original series episode. the changeling. Instead of Nomad, we have V'ger. But we are talking about probes that were sent from Earth that encounter aliens and essentially get upgraded and come back looking for their creator, only not to understand that its creator is humans. We've seen it before. I'm thinking that the logic behind this was that they wanted to kind of recapture the feeling of the original series, but with new and dazzling effects. Unfortunately, it's one of those we've seen it, and you've made it so slow, so boring, that it's like, why are we watching this again? Other problems with this movie. There are a few to go through, but I think one that might have bothered people, at least subconsciously, is Kirk is not really the hero of this movie. Captain Decker is. The Enterprise was supposed to be his, and then was taken over by a meddling admiral. The love interest in this movie is Captain Decker's. Lieutenant Ilea and he had a previous relationship. The fact that V'ger kind of assimilates Ilea, or kills her and then replicates her, and is using her and her consciousness as kind of a connection point to the Enterprise, connects V'ger to Decker, not Kirk. The one who ultimately sacrifices himself to save the day is Decker, not Kirk. The one who knows the Enterprise better than anyone at this point is Decker, not Kirk. Now, I think some people would have seen that and be like, oh, well, this was kind of the passing of the torch, which goes back to the fact that this was supposed to be originally, or a lot of the ideas from this, were Star Trek Phase 2, where it was a new Enterprise, a new crew, kind of a passing of the torch. But when they decided to make this a theatrical release, they decided to keep the original crew. But it kind of became a hodgepodge of ideas. Some of it, like Ilea and Decker, were supposed to be part of Phase 2. Some of it is supposed to be part of the theatrical universe of Star Trek. So you got to get rid of Captain Decker. So he becomes Commander Decker. It's all kind of like, it doesn't show the original cast in the best light, and it doesn't highlight what could have been with Phase 2. I feel like it was kind of a compromise on plot, a reuse of plot, and a lot of slow and boring shots. So, although it was somewhat of a commercial success, it was not the commercial success that the studio wanted. Rewatching this movie as an adult, as opposed to a kid, like I was the first time I saw it, there are some things I notice that I didn't, long ago. One of the things I notice is this: the movie does not really have a villain. It has a threat in V'ger, it has a hero in Decker, and it has, I guess you could put Kirk as a rival. He takes over the Enterprise because he has a lot of experience dealing with the unknown. We have seen admirals and commodores come on the Enterprise before, when Kirk was captain, and Kirk would remain captain, in charge of the crew and the ship, and the admiral or commodore would be in charge of the mission. So when Kirk comes aboard and just takes over the Enterprise and demotes Decker, we know that this is not something that necessarily has to happen. He could have just been in charge of the overall mission and allowed Decker to remain captain. Decker at this point has more experience with the refit Enterprise. Kirk has not captained a ship in years. This was a bad decision. When he tells Decker that he's taking over, he apologizes, and Decker basically calls him out and saying, I don't think you're sorry at all. I think you want to get back out there. I think you want to have the Enterprise as your ship again. And I think Decker is right. Kirk conscripts Bones, or drafts him. Bones had retired. It's a good thing he does, because Dr. McCoy is one of the few people who tells Kirk that he is kind of in the wrong. When Kirk orders the ship to go to warp, when both Decker and Scotty say they haven't run all the simulations, they're not sure that the ship is where it needs to be to do this. Dr. McCoy tells him, you're pushing. Let your people do your job. Kirk doesn't. Instead of forming a stable warp bubble they open up a wormhole, which they cannot maneuver in. They also bring in a giant asteroid with them, which is going to collide with the Enterprise. Kirk quickly orders them to use phasers to destroy that asteroid. Decker cancels that order and tells them to use torpedoes instead. The Enterprise is saved, not by Kirk's actions, but by Decker's. Kirk pulls Decker aside to basically tell him, like, why did you cancel my orders? Decker tells him that the way the Enterprise is set up now, the phasers would not have functioned, and that the ship would have been destroyed. Decker was making the right calls. Kirk tells Decker to stop competing with him. McCoy points out that the only one really competing is Kirk. So, Kirk is not in a position where he's making rational decisions. He is unexperienced with the new ship, and he is out of practice with captaining a ship. He took command away from someone that was experienced with the ship unnecessarily. These are really bad decisions. Now, when Spock comes aboard and helps them fix their engine problems, again, you'd kind of think Scotty could have, but okay. Spock's science, and knowledge, they're able to fix the ship. They encounter V'ger, and they can't communicate with it. It turns out because V'ger is basically using a really old style of communication. Go figure, V'ger is a probe from a couple hundred years ago. Spock is able to figure out a way to communicate. Why, Uhura didn't when she is the communications officer. Seems kind of a wasted opportunity, but okay. They are able to establish communications. Kirk says, let's go in. Decker says he thinks it's a bad idea. Now, they have already found a way to establish communications with V'ger, so why do they need to go in? This is a pretty big question, but they don't use that form of communication again for the entire rest of the movie. It might be just, bad writing, but it also seems like if you have a way to communicate, maybe communicate more before going into the lion's den, as it were. And this leads to Ilya's death. Would she have survived had they not simply entered V'ger's cloud? We don't know. I think her chances of survival might have been better. Heck, Lieutenant Sonak, who was going to be the science officer of the Enterprise, got killed in a transporter accident, which is the most brutal and scary scene of the entire movie. The concept of a transporter malfunction is terrifying. But you see Kirk give Sonak the order to join him on the Enterprise in an hour before Kirk goes up to the Enterprise. Now, when Kirk goes up to the Enterprise, Scotty has to fly him up in a shuttle because they are having transporter problems. So, when Sonak does beam up, he is killed. Is this Kirk's fault? This is partially Kirk's fault. Is Starfleet Command not communicating to the Enterprise how ready they are to receive people being beamed or not? I think there's probably plenty of blame to go around on this one, but the fact that Kirk is pushing to get things out so fast probably also contributed to Sonak's death. So now we have Ilya and Sonak killed because of the decisions that Kirk is making or pushing forward. When they finally make contact with V'ger through the Ilya probe, Decker is able to kind of communicate better with her than anyone because V'ger is using Ilya as a contact point. It's not really her. It's not really not her. It's kind of confusing. It also it looks like they might have been kind of trying to do the old Kirk, seduce the girl to save the day. But since Decker's not Kirk, it doesn't go that way. And if that's because Decker's not Kirk or because they didn't want Decker to replace Kirk in that way, hard to say. Although there was that line when Ilya first beamed on board and Kirk's like, hey, and she's like, I have a vow of celibacy. You ain't touching me. That says a lot about Kirk's reputation in Starfleet, and less said, the better. In any case, they are eventually able to make direct contact with V'ger, who is Voyager 6. They figure out what he wants, which is a connection, a direct bonding with a human. Decker volunteers. Now, if he's killed in this or ascends to something different, it's whatever Decker was is going to be gone at the end of this. So I would say he does kind of die, saving the world, the universe, but he also kind of lives. Like Aaliyah is kind of killed and kind of lives. But Decker is willing to sacrifice himself for the greater good. Kirk did not save the day. Decker did. Kirk has been in Decker's way the entire movie. It kind of makes certain things frustrating because Kirk should be the hero. He's the hero of the series, but he doesn't feel like the hero in this movie. And the hero we do have in this movie, Kirk seems to be opposing at pretty much every turn. It is odd, but that's the direction they chose. Was it the right direction? I don't know. Was there a right direction for this movie? It seems like there were so many ideas going in different directions. The only really thing you can say is the new designs on the ships were excellent. The uniforms, not so much, but they would fix that in the sequel. Is this my favorite Star Trek movie? No. No, it is not. Does it have some things going for it? Yes. A lot of the redesigns were just fantastic. The music was fantastic. The moving the story arc forward was wonderful. Bringing Star Trek back was wonderful. It had its flaws. It didn't do as well as the studio wanted, and they in fact reduced the budget for the sequel, which is funny since Wrath of Khan is probably the greatest Star Trek movie they've ever done. Despite the fact that they cut the budget for it, we'll get to Star Trek 2 eventually. So was this a great movie? It had some greatness in it, but it was overly long, overly boring, and it didn't really seem to understand what the movie wanted to be. It was both like, we're gonna do something completely new, but bring back all the old, and it didn't really work. The fans had mixed feelings about it, the critics didn't like it, and the studio was greatly disappointed in it. But it did do something that a lot of people thought might be impossible. It brought Star Trek back. What is a series of shows, of movies, of books that you wish had gone longer or would come back? Put it down in the comments. I'd love to hear it. I think that's going to be it for this discussion. So, if you liked the video, like, comment, subscribe, and share it with your friends. If you didn't like the video, share it with someone you don't like. I'll see you in the next one.